Hello everyone, Hunter here. Just wanted to do a quick video on some of the tabular mnemonics I made to get through anatomy exams that I had to take as an MS1. This video is on two of my tabular mnemonics for lower limb anatomy, specifically on the high yield associations on the major nerve and artery associated with each fascial compartment for either the thigh or the leg. These mnemonics were made to help on anatomy pinned exams or general content questions. So if a question writer pointed at an artery or nerve and asked what it was called, or if they pointed at a muscle and asked for its innervation, I could have a pretty decent guess for those questions based on this chart depending on which fascial compartment we were probably looking at. Now, some disclaimers are that, one, there will be a bunch of oversimplifications with the nature of this video with the content in these charts. Since these are made to get through first year anatomy, I can't guarantee their success beyond MS1. Additionally, because of the nature of slight variations between either anatomy textbooks or variations between programs that teach anatomy, it could be the case that the arteries or nerves here are just called by different names at your school, or it could be the case that there's multiple arteries or nerves that your program wants to associate with a given compartment. So if you want to use these mnemonics, you probably want to verify that the summary content I have written here matches up with how your school teaches it. With all that out of the way, check the description for timestamps and let's get this started. So the first mnemonic we're going to cover is for the leg compartments, and we're going to recreate this table shown here on the right. So first we're going to cover it up, and we can then reveal the mnemonic we're going to use to recreate the table. And the sentence is, lap, nah, suck down that frap. So the sentence here is a little bit gibberishy, but it served me really well in exams. The goal is it's kind of leg related, where you want to go on a run and run a lap outside. The person declines and would rather just drink a delicious Starbucks Frappuccino instead. So lap, nah, suck down that frap. But there's a lot going on with this sentence and how it's organized, and it's going to be a guide on how to reconstruct our table shown before. So as a big picture, we can simplify there to be approximately 3 leg compartments, with each having an associated artery and nerve. So what are these 3 compartments? Well, if we look first at the word lap, we can see LAP, which is going to stand for lateral, anterior, and posterior. So these are going to be the 3 major compartments for the leg. Now we know that for each of these compartments, there's an associated artery and nerve in this table. But how do we know the ordering for the rows? Well, we're going to look at the next word, which is na, N-A. So the order of the first is a nerve, so N dot, or an artery, A dot. And that is for the first chunk of content from the sentence. And we can take another step back. So when I was coming up with the table, I realized that for the leg's major nerves and arteries, there's essentially 2 major groupings of words, where the major arteries and nerves of each leg compartment is going to either be in relation to the word fibular or tibial. And everything else is just written as a descriptor plus one of these 2 words. And this should be more clear in just a bit. So for the first row, we're going to be using the first letters of the next 3 words in the sentence. So suck down that. It's going to be suck for S, down for D, and that for T. And for the next line, we're going to use the word frap, specifically the F, the A, and the P. So F, A, and P. So remember how I said these are all either going to be named after fibular or tibial, and this is the F and T in the mnemonic, and notice that they're at opposing sides of the table, in these kind of corner spots highlighted here in red. So we're going to draw a line across the positive diagonal of the table, and it's going to put an F on one side and a T on the other side. So draw this line like so, and then we're going to draw arrows from either F or T going to letters that are on its side of the diagonal. So now we have everything needed to recreate the table shown previously. So F and T, remember, they're going to stand for fibular and tibial. But what are in these spots? Well, fibular is in the artery row, meaning it's the fibular artery, and tibial is in the nerve row, meaning it's the tibial nerve. Now, what does the F in fibular point towards? Well, it's pointing at the S, which here stands for superficial, so the nerve in the lateral compartment is the superficial fibular nerve. Remember, S is for superficial, fibular, it's on the fibular side, and it's in the nerve row, so the superficial fibular nerve. Now, the F is again pointing at the D, and the D is in the nerve row, meaning the D stands for deep fibular nerve. Next, we can do the same for the tibial side. So, of course, we have the tibial nerve, and tibial, the T is pointing at an A and a P, where A is anterior, meaning it's the anterior tibial artery, and the P is for posterior, meaning it's the posterior tibial artery. And now we can erase the single letters and the arrows. And so using the tabular mnemonic from this sentence here, we were able to unpack that for the leg, in the lateral compartment, we want to think of the superficial fibular nerve and the fibular artery. In the anterior compartment, we want to think of the deep fibular nerve and the anterior tibial artery. And in the posterior compartment, we want to think of the tibial nerve and the posterior tibial artery. And so if we reveal our old table, this should match up exactly with what we had before. So lap, nah, suck down that frap. The lap gets us to this content here, meaning that from left to right, lateral, anterior, posterior. The na means that from top to bottom, it's going to be the nerve and the artery. Suck, down, that, superficial, deep, and then tibial. Frap, F, fibular, A, anterior, P, posterior. We then draw the arrows, and so we're able to derive all of the major content for the nerves and arteries associated with each of the fascial compartments of the leg. So for the next mnemonic we're going to cover, it's going to be for the thigh compartments, and we're going to recreate this table shown here on the right. So we can cover that up, and we can reveal the mnemonic we're going to use to recreate that table. So this new sentence is PAM, safe for oven, deep flex fam. Alright, so this one is less leg related. It's more so just the best sentence my friends and I could come up with at exam crunch time. If you're looking for meaning, we're talking about PAM, the cooking spray, how it's safe for use in the oven, and we think that's just a really deep flex fam. Anyways, so PAM, safe for oven, deep flex fam. This sentence is going to follow a similar pattern to how we constructed our last table, but the idea is that you want to make the leg compartment table first before making the thigh compartment table, which is why I have the leg compartment table shown here in the bottom right. Since the NA, nerve and artery row ordering, is going to be the same for both tables, however, the headers of each of the columns is going to be different. And so what are these 3 column headers? Well, once we look to the start of the sentence again, PAM, P-A-M, is going to stand for posterior, anterior, and medial. And then for the nerves and artery, N-A, we're going to write down the side here just like in our last table. So N and A. Then for the rest of the words written here, we're going to look at the first letter of each word. So safe, S, is going to be for sciatic. The F in 4 is going to be for femoral. The O in oven is going to be for obturator. And that's it for the first row. Then deep is going to be for deep. Flex is going to be for circumflex, or in this case, the lateral and medial circumflex. And fam is going to be for femoral again. But honestly, this last letter is really just for completion, and this will be shown more later. So instead of the positive diagonal line we made before, this time we're just going to do 3 arrows, all coming down from the word femoral to everything in the second row. So the nerve row is basically filled out, but for the artery row, the femoral is pointing at deep for the deep femoral artery, and it's also pointing at the lateral medial circumflex or the lateral medial circumflex femoral arteries. And then lastly, it's pointing at the word femoral, which just means it's carrying over itself. It's just going to be the femoral artery. So using the tabular mnemonic, we were able to unpack that for the thigh, for the posterior compartment, we want to think of the sciatic nerve and the deep femoral artery. For the anterior compartment, we want to think of the femoral nerve and the lateral/medial circumflex femoral arteries. And in the medial compartment, we want to think of the obturator nerve and the femoral artery. And so once more, if we reveal our old table, this should match up exactly. So in summary again, the PAM is going to be for the posterior, anterior, and medial compartments. The nerve and artery ordering from top to bottom is going to be continued over from the previous mnemonic. And then safe for oven, deep flex fam, sciatic femoral obturator, and then deep lateral/medial circumflex, and then femoral. And so the 2 mnemonics that have been covered here are able to get us a lot of high yield artery and nerve information associated with the leg and the thigh fascial compartments. So as some bonus material to help y'all with studying, I'm going to show how my tabular mnemonics can help with other mnemonics that are commonly used for content involving the lower limb. So firstly, on the left is the femoral triangle, and the mnemonic navel can be used to know the ordering of the contents laterally to medially, with the last 2 making up the femoral canal. So from lateral to medial, the contents are all going to be the femoral nerve, artery, and vein. So these 3 up here are all femoral. And there's going to be some empty space, and then lymphatics. And then shown on the right here is the tarsal tunnel, with the mnemonic tiny dogs are not hunters being used to know the contents of the tunnel from superior to inferior. And here, the first letter of each word in the mnemonic is used to prime for the ordering from top to bottom, with tiny being for tibial, dogs being for digitorum, R being for artery, not being for nerve, and hunters being for hallucis. So I always found this latter mnemonic a little harder to use because a lot of the anatomical contents of the tarsal tunnel require some pretty long and specific descriptors to be super correct on like pinned anatomy exams. So I'm going to show how my tabular mnemonics can be used to help contextualize the content of the tarsal tunnel using the tiny dogs are not hunters mnemonic. So if we're in the world where we already wrote out the leg and thigh compartment tables, we can see that these are going to better prime for the contents discussed in the tarsal tunnel. So with the phrase tiny dogs are not hunters, we know that the T is going to be for tibial, the D is going to be for digitorum, A is going to be for artery, N is going to be for nerve, and hunters is going to be for hallucis. But remember, on the anatomy exam, you probably have to know exactly what all these really long term names are. And so 2 of these will be made easier because the artery and the nerve that are talked about are the same artery and nerve that are mentioned in my table for the light compartments, because the nerve and artery are going to pass through the posterior compartment in order to get through the tarsal tunnel. So for the artery and the artery is going to be the posterior tibial artery, and the nerve is going to be the tibial nerve. Now, of course, you still have to remember the muscles/tendons in the tarsal tunnel. Tiny for tibial is going to be posterior tibial tendon, and digitorum is going to be for flexor digitorum longus, and then hallucis is going to be for flexor hallucis longus. But using my tabular mnemonic will help prime for 2 of the 5 items that need to be memorized for the tarsal tunnel mnemonic to work. And also, as a brief aside, the femoral nerve and the femoral artery written in the thigh compartment table are the same as the femoral nerve and artery that are going to go through the femoral triangle. So in both cases, the tabular mnemonics can be used to build upon other mnemonics and yield a bigger total sum of information that can be recalled during exam time. So now, in closing for the video, I'm going to do a final run through on all of the mnemonics discussed in this video and how I would go about writing them all out on my anatomy exams as an MS1. So first, we're going to start with the light compartments. So lap, na, suck, down, that, frap. Lap is for lateral, anterior, and posterior. Na is for N, A for nerve and artery. Suck for superficial. Down is for deep. That is for T. F is going to be for big F. A is going to be for big A, which is anterior. And P is for posterior. So draw our line and then draw the arrows. So we're almost done with this one, and I'll do in a different color. Lateral compartment, the nerve is going to be the superficial fibular nerve, and it's going to have the fibular artery. Anterior compartment is going to have the deep fibular nerve and the anterior fibular artery. And then the posterior compartment is going to have the tibial nerve and the posterior tibial artery. And that's it for the light compartments. So I'll draw a line. And we'll do for the thigh, so PAM, safe for oven, deep, flex, FAM. So PAM is going to be for posterior, anterior, and medial compartments. The N and A again. So the S in safe is going to be for sciatic. The F in 4 is going to be for femoral. And the O in oven is going to be for obturator. And then deep is going to be for deep. Flex is going to be for circumflex, so lat, medial, circumflex. And then FAM is going to just be for the femoral. So draw our arrows. And now, so the sciatic nerve, that's all good there. The femoral nerve, obturator nerve. And then for the arteries, it's going to be the deep femoral artery for the posterior compartment. For the anterior compartment, it's going to be the lateral/medial circumflex femoral arteries, and then it'll be the femoral artery for the medial compartment. And so that is it for the thigh compartments and the light compartments. Now we can do navel for the contents of the femoral triangle. So navel is for the femoral nerve, artery, and vein, and then empty space, and then lymphatics. And this is from lateral to medial. And then for the contents of the tarsal tunnel, so tiny dogs are not hunters. Tiny is for tibial, dogs for digitorum, R is for artery, N is for nerve, and then hunters is for hallucis. And then, using the contents of the posterior compartment here, we know that this nerve is the tibial nerve, and the artery is the posterior tibial artery. And then for the other things, you just need to brute force. Tibial is going to be the posterior tibial tendon. Digitorum is going to be for flexor digitorum longus tendon. And then hallucis is going to be for flexor hallucis longus tendon. And so that is it. All 4 of these mnemonics can all interweave with each other and be used to get a pretty good summary of the major contents of the lower extremity that are going to be useful on anatomy exams. That's it for the content of this video. I hope y'all get some good use out of the stuff covered. I hope y'all found this video helpful. Thanks for watching, and good luck on your exams.